check. Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? Hopefully the mic check wasn't too obnoxious. Mic check, mic check. Anybody? Anybody out there with their ears on this morning? Beginning to look like this 10 a.m. thing might not pan out so fast after all. All right. Just making sure. I had people queued waiting. I guess maybe it was just people switching over. I'm not sure. I had people queued waiting, and then I went live and lost everybody. It was showed I didn't have any viewers at all, so I thought maybe something was wrong, but apparently it was just me. Oh, goodness. Phone call, of course. Why not, right? 1 second. So sorry. All right, sorry. Man, it's something with the phone calls, man. It's 2 weeks in a row. Right as I fire up, I get a phone call that I can't miss. How is everybody doing this morning? CJ got his BP Hero shirt yesterday. Anybody else get theirs yet? Are you dealing with a bit of a side crisis here? Never fails, man. The second you sit down to do something, you go live, you dedicate a little bit of time to something. It's like everybody needs something. Never fails. Like I'll be trying to play video games or something, and dude, every time it's like the kids haven't said, "Hey, Dad," or needed anything or anything like that, and then the second I fire up, sometimes I'm not even into my first game. Daughter says, "Hello, Dad, where are you at? Will you play with me?" It's like, love that. Yeah, Mike, it's I don't know. I keep thinking like something's wrong. There's no audio, no nothing, but everybody's saying they can hear me. But usually there's at least a little more interaction. I'm not saying that no interaction is a bad thing. I mean, if the viewers are here and people saying they can hear me, must just be the timing of the day is all. I'm sure there's more people actually into work and started their day that maybe can't, chime in and say a whole lot, but they can still listen. So that's the other side of it too. Sammy, I play in Call of Duty Warzone mostly, maybe a dab of Fortnite here and there. But I haven't touched much Fortnite in a while. Was real stuck on the Fortnite, and then kind of transitioned into Warzone because like literally none of my friends were playing Fortnite, and now I'm like at that weird in between of like not being very good at Fortnite anymore. I used to be decent at Fortnite, not being very good at it anymore, and not being good at Warzone either. So now it's like, man, I don't know what to do other than just grind it out. I'll play on PC. Is it raining where everyone is at? Because God is it here. Because our third day in a row of rain. My backyard is like standing in water. Dude, like cats and dogs, and then their cats and dogs, and then their cats and dogs. It's crazy. So what do they say? Is it I can't even say April showers bring May flowers, man. It ain't even freaking April yet. All I know is I wish there was a turf complex somewhere. But you talk about video games. We talk about it for a quick minute. Don't want to bore you guys too much. Like I said, just kind of waiting on everybody to kind of file in here. You know the deal. I just really windy, dude. It was windy here too. My daughter's got a little like a little Tyke's house in the backyard. And I heard this noise last night, and I was like, "What is that?" It was last night or night before, because my house is kind of in a flat in the open. There's not really a lot of houses. The subdivision's not developed enough to have houses around me right now, so I'm just kind of like out in the open. And I heard this noise, like, "What is that?" And I look out and I see this little Tyke's dollhouse, or little Tyke's house, just like tumbling through the yard. I was like, okay. Good thing there's a fence to stop it. Yes, Amy, I could play Warzone on PC with a controller. It's actually getting ready to pull up. Let's see, do I have it? Oh, that's not it. Okay. Oh my god, I knew I would do that. So I had some Best Buy rewards dollars burning a hole in my pocket. I thought, yeah, you know what? They were getting ready to expire. I didn't need anything for that. I was gonna like try and hang on to it if I needed it for the channel or anything. And I couldn't think of anything. Couldn't even think of anything I needed for like myself. Asked my wife. And the rewards money was going to expire, so I went ahead and grabbed me one of these little dealy doos here. I'm a PlayStation guy, and been a PlayStation guy for years. Never once have I had an Xbox, didn't want an Xbox. But Best Buy had these, and there's really not a lot out there for Pro controllers on the DualShock 4 side of things, so the transition to the Xbox controller is a little funky. But as far as like, you know, kind of moving your thumb up to the other stick, but it's got the paddles on the Mac, and I'm a day and a half into it, and I dig it. It's designed for Xbox, but you can plug anything into the PC and it'll recognize it. But it does stink. Like if I ever want to go back and play on like my son's PlayStation or something, then I'll have to go back to a DualShock 4. But like I said, I gave hardly nothing for it because I had some rewards money through Best Buy, so I'm out here with a Pro controller making amateur plays. Yes, Amy, just drop me a message. We can hit it up. So give everybody time to get here. Looks like this is all we got for the morning, so we're just gonna roll with it. There is 12 of us watching. Do me a favor. Do you a favor. Let's grow this podcast a little bit. Share it with someone. You don't have to do it right now. You can do it later. You can tell them, hey, tune in next week. You know, this guy does this podcast, talks about softball, whatever else he can think of. Whether you like it, whether you hate it. Oh, what's up? Dave's here. He said, everybody, if you're having a good time, press 1 in the chat. Dave said 1. So, share it around. Let's grow this thing, man. And I thought that'd be kind of cool. And talking about growing and sharing and that kind of thing, I know we've talked about the Patreon page a little bit on this channel, but not a ton. But I didn't see. I guess somehow I missed a notification. I knew I had one Patreon. Basically, Patreon is a way for people to donate money, whether monthly or one time, and you can support the channel in that way. It's just money that I can put into the channel to produce more content, and you know, it's gonna help me. It's gonna help you guys get this more content and just kind of off the wall stuff for you to watch. You know, whether it be because I've had a couple ideas. Like I'd like to compare like a fast pitch bat to a slow pitch bat. Like I think it used to be people used to swing fast pitch bats and slow pitch. And, you know, I could do some experiments and stuff like that with a little bit of extra revenue because, I mean, Headbanger's not sending me a fast pitch bat just so I can go out and wail on it with some classic M's. But I know that fast pitch bats used to be good, but I don't know with standards changing and everything because I know a lot of fast pitch bats these days have like inner barrel technologies in them. I don't know a whole lot about how that stuff works. But retail on a slow pitch bat, on a fast pitch bat is insane. There's another reason that I wouldn't even ask Headbanger to send me one, but if I could, I wouldn't even have to be like a new model. I could buy a used model or a previous year's model just to see what's up. I mean, they make them in a 26 ounce. They come in clear up to a 34-26, and yes, that means that there are fast pitch bats heavier than the slow pitch bats that some people are swinging. Whoa! But we picked up a new Patreon subscriber, my man Eric's son, checking in. Appreciate that, man. The links to that should be in the description. If it's not, I'll make sure it's in there. And it should be in the videos moving forward. Don't feel obligated, but anything helps. And I greatly appreciate that. Like I said, I'm working on getting those notifications turned on so I can see that stuff and acknowledge the fact that someone is doing that because it's greatly appreciated. And one more thing I do want to discuss. Man, listen. What about this Bears quarterback debacle? I know I got some football guys in here. And man. So the Bears almost had, you know me, I'm a Bears fan. Man, my guys almost had Russell Wilson landed. I think. The last I heard, Wilson was willing to be traded to a handful of teams. The Bears were one of the top contenders. And last that I had heard, what's up, Adam? How you doing? The last I had heard was they were going to wait, shoot their shot, and see what happened. Then it was released that they tried making an offer on him, couldn't get him, and went ahead and signed Andy Dalton. Played for the Cowboys last year, former longtime Bengals quarterback. No, they didn't really say what was offered for Wilson. They just said they couldn't work it out, so they picked up Dalton. And I was kind of like, that kind of stinks. But, at the same time, when they came out with what was offered for Russell Wilson, it was 3 first-round draft picks, 2 second-round draft picks, and 2 starters from our team. But in reality, our first-round pick this year was going to be 20th round. The Bears was going to be 20th round, 20th pick in the first round, and there wasn't going to be any good quarterbacks left by that time. We don't have a quarterback to send them. There's really not much left for quarterbacks out there unless they were going to sign Andy Dalton. And the other option is Deshaun Watson, and kind of sounds like there's some drama getting stirred up with him right now, and the fact that I think he might be kind of a tough cookie. He might be kind of harder to deal than what meets the eye. And, not to mention, I don't know, it's always a weird thing, like guys demanding trades and that kind of thing. It always kind of makes me feel like you're setting yourself up for issues kind of taking on a player like that, because what's he going to do once he gets there and he's not happy, So it's kind of bummed out they didn't get him. I'm not real wild about the Andy Dalton thing, but I feel like it is an improvement. Dalton is a decent quarterback. I'll say good, not great. So it'll be interesting to see what he can bring to the table. And it did kind of burn me up a little bit that the ownership for the Bears come out and said, we made a mistake by signing Dalton because we should have did it last year. Instead, they didn't want to wait for Dalton to be released from the Bengals after the Bengals got Joe Burrow, and went ahead and traded for Nick Foles and paid Nick Foles $17 million a year to start 4 games. And they could have paid Andy Dalton probably $4 million a year. Hell, maybe even $3 million a year. Because Dalton knew he was going to be potentially competition, but probably at the end of the day, we all knew he was going to be behind Dak as a starter in Dallas, and he could have stood a better chance of starting in he could have stood a better chance of starting in Chicago, but it is what it is. We'll see where Dalton takes us. I do feel like it is a step in the right direction. It does kind of stink that looks like they're giving up on Trubisky, at least for now. The dude's kind of hit or miss. Like he has games where it's like, man, he looked good, or moments where he looks good, and then there's others where he just looks completely lost. And it's kind of disappointing if you follow the Bears, or if you've watched the Bears and you've seen that, you know what I'm talking about. Like he'll make throws where, it's like, okay, this is why this kid was a Pro Bowler his rookie year. And then there's other times where it's like, man, have you played football before? And I know he likes to throw on the run and that kind of thing. And Matt Nagy's not really into mobile quarterbacks. He wants a pocket passer, and Trubisky's just not one. So that it kind of puts everybody in a weird spot. But CJ Spink in here ripping on Sammy, saying if he's no good at gaming, why did he do it? Why did he buy the scuff controller? Because he wanted to, CJ. I mean, why not, right? At least if you got the controller, you got one more thing to blame it on. Oh, my paddle fell off. Duh. And I see a lot of talks on. Oh, sorry, yeah. So Mike, they drafted Mitch too high and putting all that pressure on him. I mean, I won't disagree that Mitch wouldn't have been my pick in that situation, but I feel like, not to make excuses or try to cover up for them, but I do feel like that sometimes quarterbacks can be a crapshoot in the draft. Like Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow was an absolute phenom when he was at Florida, and then he gets to the league and was subpar at best. And, there were people saying that was going to happen when he got there. And the dude was a winner, though. I mean, as far as like in college and everything else. And he found a way to win at the pro level. Maybe not as much as people would have liked. And it wasn't clean. It wasn't pretty. But the dude put everything he had out there and always made sure that his team was in the best position when he could put them in. People want to rip on the Bears for picking Mitch over Watson and Mahomes and everything else. And that's funny. You can kind of kick yourself and say, dang it, at a certain point. But now everybody's pointing and laughing and everything else still at the Trubisky thing. But, you don't have anybody to laugh at but the Bears. It doesn't have anything to do with Trubisky. Don't laugh at Trubisky because the Bears signed him. The Bears signed him again. They gave him a contract after his rookie contract ran out. So the joke is on the Bears at this point. But talk about college football and things like that. So one thing I was listening to on the radio this morning on the way home was NCAA basically trying to transition into paying their athletes, colleges paying athletes based on their likeness, which basically translates to did I lose my connection? I don't think I lost my connection here, did I? Okay. So anyway, basically what that translates to is you could sell jerseys with players' names on them. You could do that kind of thing, and the players going to get a cut of that money instead of players filling the stands and the college is taking all the money and the players getting nothing for it. You're paying for the likeness, you're paying for the personality, you're paying for that person, and they feel like they get nothing in return. And I get that to a certain extent, but the other side of that too is, a lot of those kids are on scholarships. I mean, your college is essentially paid for. You've got healthcare, you've got food, you've got housing. And I'm not saying that every person is completely taken care of, but greed is a powerful thing. And I think that that's kind of what's coming into play here. And, they were saying on the radio that the NCAA missed out on $800 million last year because of COVID and not being able to have seasons and games and everything else. $800 million. That is almost $1 billion that they missed out on because they couldn't have their games. And they don't owe that money, any of that money to those players. And then it's kind of crazy to think about. And if there was personalized merchandise and that kind of thing out there, then that number could be more, but that number would also be going to those players at that point. But I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of old school in the thinking of you're already getting your free schooling, you're getting, basically everything taken care of. Why should you have to be paid? Your schooling is paid for, but that's just me. Because then it's going to come down to cash cows. Whoever's got the most money to throw around will be just like the NFL. They'll have to do some kind of salary cap or something. And at that point, it's not college sports anymore. It's professional sports. There's no point in recruiting. There's no point in saying, hey, why don't you come play football at Mizzou? Because we got this player, we got that player, and we can promise you this and promise you that. It's going to be, hey, listen, I got $50,000 if you come here. That's the best offer you're going to get. It just comes down to money and who wants to throw it around. And I just don't feel like that's right for college sports. What's up, Jorge? How you doing, man? But, segue, talking about getting paid to play, kind of rolls into slow pitch players getting paid. And yeah, Adam, I agree. Those kids are getting paid. And it's maybe not that those kids are getting paid, but they're very well taken care of, and so are their families. So, but that's the segue for slow pitch players getting paid. At what level should you be getting paid, and how much should you be getting paid? And I'm kind of indifferent on this in the aspect of Really, it just comes down to the sponsor. Like, if a sponsor wants to pay his e-players to show up and play, what's stopping him? Why shouldn't he? It's his money. He wants to win. Let him spend it. I'm not saying that I've never, ever heard of an E-team paying players to play. Boy, this is a hard one. But it's kind of one of those things that, you know, if the sponsor wants to do that, then by all means go for it. I mean, there's sponsors that take care of everything, expenses paid. Very fortunate to be a part of a team where our sponsor takes care of practically everything. All you've got to do is get your ugly ass to a tournament, and everything else is taken care of. You got a free complete set of uniforms on your back at all times. You know, you're usually eating at least one good meal. I'm not talking like he takes you to McDonald's. You're usually eating at Texas Roadhouse or Cracker Barrel or Applebee's or something for free during the day. He's paid for a lot of hotels. People don't know how good it is to have that sometimes. And if that's what he wants to do with his money, let him. It doesn't matter what level you're at. There's no minimum level of what you should be getting paid to play softball. Like, I've heard locally of, D/E caliber or D/C caliber teams, paying people to come out for the weekend. And people are, those people only play with them because they paid them money to come out. Well, so what? It sounds to me you're just jealous you didn't get paid. Have I ever been offered to pay to come out? No. Absolutely not. Do I expect to be? No. But again, if that's what that sponsor wants to spend that money on, or if you're the manager of a team and a sponsor gave you the money and said, here, go win me some games with my name on your shirt, and that's how you decided to spend that money, go for it. Like, I don't see the issue in that. E-level, clear up to major. I mean, clearly we know there's lots of money thrown around at the major level. Just based on numbers I've heard, I'm not repeating numbers, but based on numbers I've heard, it would make your head spin. Just the amount of money that gets thrown around for players to switch teams, do that kind of thing. It's wild. I mean, absolutely wild. But again, that guy's got that money. That guy, that person, that whatever has that money. Spend it. Who cares? It shouldn't matter if you've got $100 to put towards a team for the weekend, or if you've got $10,000. If that's what you want to spend your money on, and that's what you enjoy, and that's your way of giving back to the game, that's your way of giving back to whatever, or if you just got the extra money, it doesn't matter where it came from, why it's there. Take it and go on. I just think it's ridiculous that people get all salty and get all jealous and get all uptight about players getting paid to play, when in reality, if you sit back and you look, most of the time it's going to be the people that are jealous that they're not in that situation. /end rant. But one thing I do want to talk about, we went from a segue to, we're just going to grab the wheel and just spin the other direction. So let's see. How many of you follow the BP Hero Facebook page and saw what was posted on, what was it, I believe Tuesday? Is that right? This unit right here. Look at this thing. Mic and handle. Replay it, please. Mic and handle. Pure integrity barrel. It's an alloy mic and handle with a one-piece pure integrity that you got cut up and made into a bat. Basically, this is the Frankenstein bat. Yes, the stamp is cut in half. The maker and I are completely aware. And it was kind of funny because this was just kind of made out of shits and giggles. It was made like, he had the broken whatever bat the alloy handle came from. It was just laying around the garage. And then he had the integrity, which was broken right above the hands. It broke at the handle right above the hands. And he thought, what the hell? I'm going to try and make something out of this. And he made it, and it looked good. And he said, hey, man, I'm not going to be able to swing this, but I'd like to see how it does. I'm willing to send it to you if you want to put some swings on it. So I said, all right, bet. That'd be awesome. Just because it's something different, you know? Not that I'm tired of doing bat reviews or anything else, but, you know, it's a change of pace is good sometimes. And, dude, I think it'll be a lot of fun to swing it. Dude, it may last 5 swings. It may last 1,000. I don't know. But, man, the people that were coming out of the woodwork, you know, tagging, you know who. I'm not going to say his name because I don't promote that stuff. And saying the name of the company and everything else is just going to feed into that. But people are tagging him and talking, oh, well, he didn't do that. And come to find out, I didn't know. And I'm not sure. I honestly never asked the guy that made the bat if he knew that this is like a common thing. This is like a common swap that you can go to this place and have them do this. You can have them take, I don't know if they'll do any bat, but I guess it's a common thing to take the pure integrity barrel and slap an alloy handle on it, whether it be from whatever bat. And people start posting pictures of theirs that they've had this company do. And I was just kind of like, damn. Like, excuse me, hang on. Got a cough. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of opened my eyes to the fact that, like, damn, this is like a thing. You know, we know that there's shenanigans. We know that there's honestly, flat out, there's cheating. And is this cheating? Is this bat? Well, this bat, I mean, the stamp's cut in half, but coming to find out that this is a common swap and it's kind of a thing. I mean, is it theoretically cheating? I don't know about cheating because I don't know that it's going to give you an advantage, but it's altered, you know, you could say. I do know, I remember, I've mentioned it a few times. I was watching one of the major games one time, and Don Cooper got to talking about how different handles can actually affect the performance of a bat to a certain extent. And when I'm talking affect performance, dear God, don't go out and buy a bunch of one-piece bats or certain handle bats, or don't buy bats with flex handles, or don't do that, because that's not what the message I'm saying here. The message is he said, you know, a one-piece bat with a stiff handle will have better exit velocity than a two-piece bat. And I mean, that makes sense because it's rigid. It's not, there's literally no give in it, but what do you get when you have no give? You have, if you don't hit the sweet spot, it makes you want to cry. But switching handles on, like doing this swap here, like I can't tell you what it would do for performance. I don't know if it would make it better. I don't know if it would make it worse because you're going from one piece to two piece. But even just, you know, if you were to switch handles, take an Easton and put it on an alloy handle, like I'm not sure what the advantage would be other than to say, hey, look what I got. Be something different. Maybe you like the way the Easton performs, but you don't like the feedback. I don't know that theoretically you're gaining much of an advantage in performance, but it is not how it came from the factory. And it is altered. Yes, like technically it is cut. But I don't know. I don't like cheating. I don't like people that do it. It's very much a thing, and don't think it's not. So it's just kind of a weird thing. The guy that made this had no intention of swinging it in a game. Like I said, it was just I've got this and I've got that. Let's see what happens. And like I said, because he cut right through the stamp. But it just kind of opens your eyes to the amount that post and the messages that I got and the responses that I got kind of opened my eyes to how much of a very common thing that cheating is. It's just kind of crazy. And there's people that do it that, man, you might share a dugout with them and you don't even know. You know, that maybe their dirty little secret. Or the other thing too with wheeling and dealing used bats is the possibility of running into one, because if somebody's just trying to ditch a bat and don't want to disclose that because they just want it gone, or maybe it's their secret and they don't want it to get out, but they got to get rid of a bat, you know, they could just as easily deal it. And if something happens and you're caught with it, you go back to that person and say, hey, you know, this was altered. I didn't do it. Well, that person could say, well, how do I know you didn't do it? Maybe you did do it. Or they could say, well, I got it used and that's how it was. I didn't know either. You know, there's ways to lie out of that. If they're willing to lie and use that equipment, they're willing to lie to get themselves out of a jam. So it's everywhere. And that's kind of, I'm not going to like get too far into depth or like sit here and harp and talk about it too long, but it does make you wonder about like different things that do happen in the game. And it's any game really, you know, everybody's trying to get the advantage. Everybody's always trying to get an edge. And there's a lot of people that say, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And I joke around and say that because kind of being from, I'm going to tell myself here a little bit, being from Podunk in a very rural area, man, like racing mud trucks is a thing. It used to be huge back in the day. It still is a thing. But man, the money that some people would spend on that stuff would just blow your mind. And the things that they would do to cheat would just blow your mind. Like I've heard of people concealing nitrous lines to make them look like vacuum lines on an engine. And then, you know, from there they've got I don't know how many car guys I got in here. But from there they've basically got nitrous jets fed into the bottom of the intake manifold through what appears to be a vacuum line. And they'll hide, you know, bottles inside of tubes of the roll cage and change them out from underneath the truck. Dude, I've heard of all kinds of crazy things that would just blow your mind. If you're a car guy, you're into that kind of thing. But it just goes to show, like, people will do whatever they can to cheat. And it's very much a thing. You know, in softball, you've got things like steroids. And do I consider steroids in softball cheating? No, I don't. Unethical? Maybe. But that's just what that person is willing to do to give themselves an edge. And if you're not, like, that stinks. But that person is willing to do that. And sometimes that's what makes a difference. You know, I think the higher you get up in levels, the very much more of a common thing it is. And don't get me wrong here. I'm very careful with the things that I say when it comes to topics like this because, you know, I'm not relevant to upper level softball, and I'm not trying to be. I'm never ever am I trying to be relevant in any community of any stature. I'm not trying to move myself up, but being someone at a somewhat mid to low level, you know, talking about the guys that play up, you know, it can get twisted. It can get, you know, listen to what he said or things like that. But you're not going to see lots of guys on, you know, performance enhancing drugs at the D level. You're going to run into it at the you know, starting to see more of it at the C level and the B level and the A level. But like I said, there's nothing stopping those people. And at the end of the day, those drugs didn't make those people into athletes. They were already athletes. And that's the argument that, you know, you can make for things like that. You know, I'm talking about like Barry Bonds, and Barry Bonds not making the Hall of Fame. And like the guy was a hitter anyway. The guy was a hitter, and then he turned into a home run hitter. Arguably, as he got on more drugs, he got bigger and turned into a home run threat. But the dude was an athlete beforehand. He was an MVP before acknowledging the first time that he took what he thought were drugs. You know, to say that, you know, it made Barry Bonds what he was is crazy, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing here. Those guys were ball players before they did this stuff, and did it take them to the next level? Sure. But they were already good athletes anyway, and it potentially made them a better athlete because it was able to make them faster and stronger and bigger and able to perform better. But that's the risk they're willing to take. It's their body. It's their choice. You know, not to sound all, you know, left here. But, you know, it's their decision. There's nothing stopping it. It's not illegal. It's not like they're drug testing in softball or anything like that. And do I think they should? I don't know. At the conference level, you know, there's, you know, always somebody trying to stir the pot on the old scout talking about drug testing and that kind of thing. And I just feel like that's a bit extreme for slow pitch softball. But it would be something that could not, I wouldn't say level the playing field, but open your eyes. But at the same time, it's slow pitch softball. People are getting paid, yes. And that's where it gets sticky. And that's where I don't have a ton of opinion. But like in general, like it's your body, it's your choice to do what you want with it. You know, if that's what you're willing to do to take yourself to the next level, then that's just what you're willing to do. You're willing to do more than the other guy. Doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it wrong. It's just like, I mean, one of those things where bodybuilders, people think, you know, bodybuilders don't use drugs. I mean, more and more has came out on that throughout the years. The guys are open about using drugs. I do think a lot of that could be contributed to guys like Mark Bell. Guys that, you know, openly acknowledge that they're using performance-enhancing drugs and still at an elite level, because at the end of the day, you're competing against other guys that are, and you're still better than them. And, you know, you've heard guys talk about this stuff before, but to think that like the guys on the Olympia stage, and I used to think it too, the guys on the Olympia stage aren't on drugs is crazy. It's kind of one of those things, like I said, it's everywhere in the aspect of no matter what the sport is, no matter what the competition is. And yes, there are, music for all. There are differences in the bodybuilding classes, but we're, you know, talking like guys like Michael Hearn. People like, oh, Michael Hearn's natural. And no, I mean, he's one of the ones that he's talked about it a little bit. But, you know, people would say, oh, you could look like that naturally. Like, you would have to be a genetic freak to look like some of those guys do absolutely natural. And that's back to, like the big giant bodybuilders. You got guys like Phil Heath and Kai Green and Jay Cutler, like the top names. Evan Sitapani, guys like that. Genetically, they were going to look ridiculous anyway. Even natural, those guys would look ridiculous because it's genetically their muscle insertions and that kind of thing. The way their body build is, their body type, I should say. It's just, that's what it's going to be, and it just takes them to the next level. The same thing as an athlete. An athlete is a good athlete or a bad athlete, and the drugs will just make them a better. It will take them from bad to good, or it will take them from good to great. Bottom line. But that just kind of makes you stop and think, like, what are people doing to kind of manipulate the game and doing shady things? You know, you've got things like the steroids that we just harped on. You got like roster shenanigans, people always playing games with rosters. You know, people having 2 or 3 different player profiles, or sneaking players in, or always sandbagging and that kind of thing. That's something that goes on all the time. That's something that people always will whine about and talk about and carry on about. And do I think it's right? No. Does it happen? A lot. And I'll be the first to admit, like, I have been on a couple of teams that I have put together that are, in theory, sandbagging it to a certain extent. And there's nothing. But the thing is the situations and the teams that I put together, there was nothing saying you can't put this team in this division. There's no, like, you can't have this caliber player, you can't have that caliber player, you can't have this class of player. There was nothing saying that I can't do those things. So it is me bending and manipulating the rules, yes. And that stuff's going to happen. Now, when it comes to doing shady things with a roster, where you're showing up with players that aren't on a roster, or guys shouldn't be there because they're too high of a class, or maybe you've got too many of a certain class of player, that stuff happens, and it happens a lot. And yeah, sure, maybe it's not right for those people to do that, but at the same time, there's got to be some regulation in there too, right? You can't trust that everybody's going to do the right thing all the time. That comes down to the director, whoever's running whatever event of whatever sanctioning body. It doesn't matter. It's up to them to regulate that however they can. I mean, I've seen state tournaments where you don't even have to sign into anything. You just fall out of the car and play. Or, if you show up halfway through a day, you just kind of slide onto the field and nobody says a word. Seen it happen. Seen it happen a lot on a lot of different teams. And I don't know, it's a sticky thing, but at the end of the day, it comes down to directors have to regulate and have to regulate somehow. And there's been times where, teams are called chicken shit for pulling up a roster when they see something wrong. And at the end of the day, here's how this always works. A team pulls up a roster and says, hey, that player shouldn't be here. Then they get called out. The team gets called out. And if it is, in fact, the situation where the player shouldn't be there, then, the team is disqualified. They're forced to forfeit. And the team that appealed is called chicken shit. But at the same time, aren't you chicken shit for showing up and bending the rules, knowing you're bending the rules? But it's easy to make those guys look like the victim. Oh, it's just one player. Well, sure, it's just one player. But how many of those one players make a difference in a game? It's chicken shit on both sides, but everybody always wants to play the victim. Victim card, victim card, victim card. But sometimes that's just not how it works. It's play the other side of it. Nobody ever wants to look at the other side of a situation. They always just want to point a finger and immediately take a side. And that's one thing that I'm guilty of at times is, kind of playing devil's advocate to certain situations. I've aggravated some people. I've struck some nerves with people. I've made people mad. But you got to stop and look at both sides of everything. That's probably just the way what's the word I'm looking for? I can overanalyze just about anything, and I think that's kind of the situation there. And, when it comes to like roster stuff like that, it's going to happen. Directors need to regulate it better, or at the end of the day, you've got to do what you feel is right. If you want to take that team, go ahead. If that team's got too many, say for instance, that team's got too many D players on it. You're playing E, and that team's got too many D players on it. You can call them out and take the win and move on and get labeled as chicken shit. Or you can play the game and beat them anyway and then laugh in their face. But to me, where it does turn into chicken shit is for the game to be over and then you say, hey, well, that game shouldn't count. So you knew the entire game, but you didn't want to say anything until you had to. Now, I do feel like that's kind of cheap because now you want to make an excuse now that you've lost. You know, you wasted everybody's time. You wasted an hour of the tournament. You wasted 20 players' time. You wasted the umpire's time. When in reality, you wouldn't get to say a word if you won. But if you were going to say something if you lost. Now, that's crap. To me. Because if you knew the entire time and you didn't do anything about it until things didn't go your way, you know, speak up sooner, dude. Something else that goes on in the game that I don't see a ton of, but is definitely a thing, is restitching softballs. And I think it used to be very much a thing back in the day. To my knowledge, it doesn't happen a ton anymore. But I've been to some tournaments where, you know, guys say, oh, well, we just prefer to hit this ball. We think it's tuned better for the bats. And they're the teams out there using a lesser ball, hitting more home runs. It's like, okay, dude. Okay. You're using a lesser performing ball and hitting more home runs than anyone because you feel the lesser performing ball is better tuned for the bats. Or you had a bunch of those restitched balls laying around from something else and decided to use them here because you could pass it off as being a lesser ball. That is chicken shit. No doubt. But it's a thing. Restitched balls are a thing. It happens. And I've never seen one. I'm sure I've had plenty in my hand as a pitcher, but I've never seen one, never been part of anybody that said, hey, you know, I got these restitched balls. Do you want to use them? But it happens. I'm telling you it happens. Because I've heard people talk about it. People say, oh, yeah, I've got a dozen of these or a dozen of those, and, you know, we don't get them out until we have to. And, you know, it's kind of like people with shaved bats in their bags. You know, oh, I don't get it out till I have to, or, you know, I don't need to use it till I need to hit a home run. Well, the fact of the matter is you're still using it. But not jumping too far ahead into things here. You know, you got restitched balls, and then you've got like things like rolling bats. So you get into the bat side of things. You get into rolling bats. Rolling bats kind of falls into the custom two-piece bat thing. Unethical is what I'll say. Yes, technically it is still altered because it was used in a manner that was not what it was meant for because it was put through a bat roller. But to me, and this is again speaking from no experience because I just don't get down like that, but it's not going to do anything more than just break it in and break it in faster. And it's crazy that that's kind of still a thing because of the way bats break in. I mean, 50 swings and you're wondering like, God, is this thing going to fail compression soon? So the fact that you're going to roll the piss out of it, get it down below 200 and then start hitting it, that's just kind of crazy to me. Like all it's doing is accelerating the break-in process. I've never heard, and there are a handful of, I say a very small handful of YouTube videos comparing stock to rolled and that kind of thing. And even people that are open about rolling bats can say, like, it doesn't make it any better. I just don't want to break a bat in. You know, people are open about saying that. And it's whatever. It's just unethical. Never had a bat rolled, and I probably won't. If I don't have time to break a bat in, I'm buying something else, or I'll buy one that's broke in. And that's something else that you run into. Buying and trading used bats is something that's been rolled, and I think bat rolling happens a lot more than people think. But that's kind of one of those things that's undetectable. Very much like if you get a custom two-piece bat made, you know, if you get your pure integrity thing that's had the one-piece handle clobbed off of it and had an alloy handle slammed onto it, you know, you can call it out, but what if the umpire doesn't realize that that bat isn't supposed to be a two-piece? I mean, how are you supposed to make that argument? It would be, I want to say undetectable. I mean, if an umpire doesn't know bats, if an umpire doesn't know a ton about bats, and with the way things are these days and the things that I've seen just here recently with the pictures and things that have been sent to me and just some of the things that people have posted since I posted that, just kind of opened my eyes to, like, those things can look legit. So how are you to say, hey, this is supposed to be a one-piece bat, ump? but it's not. You need to throw it out. Well, the umpire, what if he doesn't know? He looks at it. It's got the stamps. It's got the markings. It's got everything it needs. How's he supposed to throw it out? You know? Because even on like the approved bat lists, there's no, this bat is a 1-piece, this bat is a 2-piece. It's just kind of crazy. Just things like that happen. But if you go from rolling bats, back on topic of rolling bats, just what I consider would be unethical, not necessarily cheating, because it doesn't give you an advantage other than breaking your bat in for you. 2 shaved bats, and I have never messed with a shaved bat. I've seen plenty of it. Had teammates that have had them in my dugout, and I avoid that situation at all costs. Not a fan of it. And if it's a situation where it's happened a very small handful of times where I'm aware of the product that is in the dugout, like I don't even go near it. I don't go near it. Even if I'm just standing around with it in my hand, because like there's times where I'll pick a bat up, you know, coming from the on deck circle, and I'll stand around with it in my hands, and somebody else finds out or somebody else knows that I'm standing with that thing in my hands. What's somebody going to think? You're standing there with the bloody murder weapon when someone rolls up on the scene, or something happens later on and somebody says, "Oh, well, that bat was shaved." Well, I saw him. You know how hearsay is. Well, I saw him using it. I saw it in his hands. Next thing you know, you're on the hook. But I don't agree with it at all. Not even in outlaw stuff, really. I guess theoretically, outlaw anything goes, sure. But to me, outlaw would mean no rules. Senior bats and whatever ball you want to hit. And, you know, people make the argument, oh, a shaved bat's just as good as a senior bat. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. But I have seen what a shaved bat can do in people's hands, and it's wild. And I don't like it. But what kind of brought on all of this topic here is I saw a post on Facebook where somebody was wanting to legally pursue a hitter for hitting at a pitcher with what he believed to be a shaved bat. Is there legally anything you can do, like if somebody gets hit, and you know what's the action to take? There's so many people just saying, "Oh, just man up." Well, just man up. You know, like the people that are saying just man up haven't stood on the mound 50 feet away from a dude with a fucking lightsaber in his hands. Pardon my French. Sorry if you're at work or you got your kids around. I'm sorry. But you've never been on the pitcher's mound throwing a classic M to a dude with a lightsaber, hoping you can at least see it go by so you can get out of the way. And, you know, what are you going to do in that moment in time? Because there's been situations too where, you know, that the bat you're pitching to is altered. But what are you supposed to do about it? You're supposed to say, I've heard a lot of stories about that bat. Could you use something else? Blue, throw that bat out. No, because the umpire's not going to make the batter switch bats. There's no proof. How are you supposed to see it? You can't tell. So you're left with no choice but to hope you're not hit at. And there's people that will use them and not hit at people, not hit at pitchers. And then there's people that just don't care. And either way, it's wrong. So it doesn't really matter, you know, oh, you're hitting middle with it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you're hitting the ball. You're swinging a bat you shouldn't be. Give me just a second here, guys. But what's the action to take for a shaved bat? If you wanted to legally pursue something, say you get hit with a shaved bat and you want to press charges, there's a lot of things that have to take place there. You would have to prove legally that, in the state of law or state of court of law, court of law, that there was intent. You're going to have witnesses. You're going to have somebody saying, well, yeah, he said he was going to hit him with a softball. He was going to hurt him. And then he did. You would have to have intent. You have to have intent or it's not going to hold up. But even then, it doesn't matter what they're using. It's a matter of you got hit with a ball after somebody said they were going to injure you, and then they injured you. That's assault. In my eyes. I don't know. This isn't the court of law. This is YouTube. And I'm just some idiot that you guys sit around and listen to. And God, am I so glad that you do. I'm so glad. 22 of you right now are listening to me talk about this. And I'm just kind of talking out my ass because I don't legally know. But in my eyes, it doesn't matter what the bat is that the person is swinging. It's a matter of there was intent, and the intent was to injure, and then injury happened. Bottom line. But, you can't go to court and say, well, he was using an unaltered bat, and that's what he hit me with, so that's why it's wrong. They're not going to care what they were using. But one thing that I did see in this post was that theoretically, so the music thing real quick, sorry, squirrel. The music thing is just like sometimes like I stop and I think, or like I've got a situation kind of going on here. So I got to stop and attend to my phone every few seconds. So it's either sit and listen to dead silence, like that awkward silence, or the music can be soothing. But anyway, back on topic here. So I did see in that post where, from a legality standpoint, the maker of the product could come after the user of the product for altering it. Because it was made a certain way, and then you altered it to do something different. And I wish I would have screenshot it so I could remember exactly what was said. But it brought up a pretty decent point of, it was made to a standard, and then you did something to it to make it exceed that standard. Therefore, you're altering their patented product, is essentially the way I took it. And you could be pursued from a legal standpoint for the manufacturer. But even then, I don't know how much that's going to hold up. But there's a decent possibility that could. I don't know a whole lot about manufacturing and like intellectual property and patents and things like that. But that's what I would take away from that. Is bottom line, the message is what do you do if someone is using a shave bat against you? What's the action to take? Man, suck it up and go on. I know it sucks. It's back to the just man up thing. And it's easier said than done sometimes, but at the end of the day, there's no way to prove it. There's no way to prove it. There's no way to say, hey, he didn't hit a home run until he picked that bat up. Well, you don't have any different variables going into that. The umpire's not going to listen to that argument. Sammy, you could walk them. But what do you do when the next guy picks it up? Or what if you can't walk them? There's a lot of angles that go into stuff like that. And Sammy, I'll never make it known. Like, I'll never call anybody out and never point anybody out. I'm not going to be the one to go around talking. That and the other thing that's kind of aggravating with that too is like I've been accused, and it's aggravating. It's completely aggravating from the aspect of like when people play the game the right way and still get accused of it. That stings a little because I pride myself in not doing things like that. So to have that accusation stings a little. And, what if you are wrong? What if, you call this person out or whatever else, and then turns out you were wrong. Then you just look like an idiot. You look like a crybaby. But I'll never, ever call anybody out. That's just not me. That's not what I'm going to do. If I'm pitching to it, I'm not going to... If the situation allows, I have and will pitch around them. But there's situations where you just can't. And that's what those people live for in those moments with those products. And, that's just where you don't really have much else to do other than just man up. It sucks, but that's just the way it is. But, it's just like Adam just said right here. Let's say you win a tournament with a shaved bat and get all tournament team or MVP of the tournament. How do you go around with your chest poked out? That's the difference, though, is we look at that and see it as wrong, but the person that's doing it doesn't see it as wrong. So you got to remember that. So they're going to look at it different. And, there's people that say if you can't beat them, join them. And that's not right either. That's not right either. With the way products perform today, there should be no need for any of it. But it happens, and it's a thing. And I'm starting to talk in circles because I'm starting to get aggravated, and I really want to go in. But in the fact of being politically correct and not drawing more attention to myself than I don't need, I'm just going to shut it down there. We're going to end the podcast on kind of a slow note there. It's been doing nothing but raining for like the last 4 days. But I am hopeful to get out and get some swings in on Saturday with what brought us to this topic, the hybrid, the Mic and Pure hybrid. And hopefully get a little more content and footage in. I got a couple other ideas that I'm going to try and shoot on that day if I can. So we'll see what happens. But nonetheless, that's all I got for this one, guys. I got you all hyped up, and then I'm just going to leave you. But that's just how this one's going to go. Thanks for stopping in and checking out the podcast. I appreciate every last one of you guys for stopping in. We'll give another couple shots of this 10 a.m. thing. Things did seem a little slower. But like I said, some of that could be the fact that it's later in the day. People might just have it on at work. Or, it's just a different set of people watching. A lot can change in an hour across the country. But, viewership is about the same and everything else. So, we'll roll with it. See what happens. Swing hard in case you hit it. Next Thursday, 10 a.m. Central. I'll see you kids then.